Welcome back to the Sportsnaut interview. NFL storylines is our topic on the table. And to do that, we talked to one of the best in the industry, that is Charean Williams, NBC Sports. And Charean, the NFL has got to love what is happening this week, this year in the league. Just crazy. You look at the scenarios, all the playoff scenarios going into week 17. It's crazy how many teams are still alive. One of those teams, believe it or not, the Las Vegas Raiders. Antonio Pierce, this guy goes into Kansas City and they beat the Chiefs on Christmas Day. What's your view? Has Antonio Pierce done enough? Has he had enough of this audition to earn that job full-time in Las Vegas?
Well, Scott, I always think when you have an interim coach, you think about all the interim coaches we've had, you get that bump. You saw what the Chargers did coming off that Raiders game, they lose. Seems like players are happy when the head coach leaves. If they weren't on board with them, you can usually tell they play harder the next week and the following weeks. Having said all that, I do think they've gotten that bump, obviously. But having said that, you can just see how much fun this team's having. The smoking the cigars in the locker room, and they just seem like they're having fun playing football again, which they did not seem like they were having under Josh McDaniels. So 2 years ago, now I'll preface this by saying Rich Bisaccia is a really good friend of mine. I thought he should have gotten the job 2 years ago, leading the Raiders to the postseason. I thought he did enough 2 years ago. It was the same type thing. They get that bump. They play really well for Rich. Now, circumstances were different, why they fired the head coach, but they did get that bump. They did go to the playoffs, and then they decide not to hire Rich Bisaccia. They go outside, they go get Josh McDaniels. It's obvious that was the wrong decision to make. Will they make the right decision this time? Because I think Antonio Pierce is the right decision for them. He's the right head coach for them. They'll still have to go through the entire search. Even though he's a minority hire, they will have to go through the search, do the interview process, all of that. So it's not going to be an immediate hire for the Raiders. But I think after they do that search, do their due diligence, I think they're going to find that Antonio Pierce is the right guy for the job. The question I have is Mark Davis going to do the right thing? He didn't do the right thing 2 years ago. Is he going to do the right thing now?
It'll be interesting. And you know, having covered the league as much as you have, it's a copycat league. And let's face it, it's a good old boy network when it comes to coaching. A lot of the coaching decisions aren't necessarily made on who's best fitted for the role. It's based on sort of who knows who. And in this case, though, you look at Antonio Pierce. He seems to bring back a little bit of that swagger that you saw from the Raiders when they enjoyed success as a franchise. Staying on the AFC side, we're looking at the AFC East. You know, you go back to week 10 and you're thinking Dolphins are going to run away with this thing. Bills are having trouble. Now you see the Bills, even though they just got by beating the Chargers, are the Dolphins going to hold on to this thing, or what do you see as kind of the storyline in that AFC East as we go down to the wire?
I do think they are going to hold on. They got to win one of their last two. Obviously, they have the Ravens, and then the Bills could decide the division crown. And I do think it probably comes down to that last game, but I think the Dolphins are the better team than the Bills. So I do think the Dolphins hold on and win that. Huge game for the Dolphins on Sunday when they beat the Cowboys. They proved that they can beat a good team. Now, they did it at home. Obviously, they haven't done that on the road to beat a good team on the road. But I do think the Dolphins are the better team, and you usually lean toward the better team. But I would have taken the Chiefs yesterday. I would have taken the 49ers yesterday, and obviously those didn't work out. So you just never know in this league what's going to happen. You take it week by week, and you know what? The Dolphins very well could turn around and beat the Ravens. You look at the Ravens coming up. They played great, and I would say right now they're the best team in the NFL. I think they proved that last night. They're coming off a short week. Very physical game, short week. We know what happened with the 49ers last year. You played the 49ers, you turned around, you lost the next week. And then to do that on a short week, long travel, long way back. I bet they got in at 7 or 8 this morning. So the Dolphins should have the advantage from that standpoint in that game. Can the Dolphins beat the Ravens? I think if the Dolphins beat the Ravens, we're going to be looking at a wide open AFC.
That's just crazy. And one last note on the Ravens, Charean, because I look at the Ravens and I feel like they've somehow flown under the radar this year. Do you think that's because of what we've seen from them in past years? And that is, hey, they do so well in the regular season, get in the postseason and bow out early?
It's weird because everybody was picking the 49ers to blow them out. I didn't think the 49ers would blow them out. I thought the 49ers would win because they were playing at home. I thought the 5.5 point spread was a little much. I would have taken the Ravens against that spread. Their defense is so good. I think that's probably what's underrated, is how good that defense is. And that defense, if you look back to last year and the year before, when Lamar Jackson was injured, missed 4 games and then missed 5 games in the regular season over the last 2 years, that defense kept them in games, sort of what the Browns are doing right now. And then they just needed Lamar Jackson to be there to make some plays on offense. Well, he's there now. And so, yeah, I think in some ways they have flown under the radar, and I think it's mainly that defense that's flown under the radar, just how good they are. And we got a sense of it last night. They are really, really good on defense. To me, it goes back to the days of Ray Lewis when they won the Super Bowl with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and all those guys. I do think they're playing at that level in today's NFL. They're playing that good that defense could win the championship for them. I have an MVP vote. I was up in the air, but I think after last night, unless something happens over the next 2 games, to me it's Lamar Jackson as well as he played. I think he's going to win his second MVP award.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask you that question knowing that you did have an MVP vote, because obviously Brock Purdy had his shot, and we all know in the NFL, you have momentum and sometimes you can lose it very quickly. We saw that happen. But Lamar Jackson, too, that's the thing. Remember, 5 teams passed on perhaps trading for him last offseason. He comes in this year, and I think a lot of what he's done, a lot of the criticisms you heard about him being running first, not being able to pass the ball well, he's answered so many of those things and done so much better when you watch him perform and throw the ball downfield.
Yeah, and he's just so hard to defend because he can extend plays. And I tell you what, when he's extending plays, he's not looking to run first. He's still looking to pass the ball. We saw that a lot last night. But if it's not there, he is going to take off and use his legs, and he does that very, very well. So, to me, he's kind of flown under the radar too. Talk about the defense flying under the radar. He sort of has too. I think people forgot because he didn't play the end of last year. He didn't play the end of the year before that, the 2021 season. He didn't have those December games that you're looking for like he did last night when he really made his mark, signature game for the season that he had last night. So maybe people had sort of forgotten about him. I don't know. But, yeah, you look at the teams that had a chance to go sign him to a contract and give up 2 first. If you're going to give up 2 first-round draft picks, I'd rather have Lamar Jackson than Deshaun Watson. I'll tell you that much. If you're going to give a fully guaranteed contract, I would have rather had Lamar Jackson than Deshaun Watson. But nobody else was going to give up that guaranteed contract that Deshaun Watson got. That was part of it. The Ravens certainly didn't want to do that. And I think they were reluctant to give up 2 first-round draft picks. But when you go back, hindsight's always 20/20. But when you go back and look at it, there are 10 teams in this league that should have signed him to a contract and seen what happened, see if the Ravens would match that, and happily give up those 2 first-round draft picks.
Yeah, just an amazing player to watch, and I enjoy watching him every time I get the opportunity. All right, let's switch, flip the coin, go to the NFC side. We talked a little bit about the 49ers. I still think they have great balance on their roster. But the Philadelphia Eagles, here's a team who struggle. We're starting to hear a lot of things come out of the locker room about struggles, about maybe some internal strife happening there. When you look at the Eagles, they kind of got off the snide here. They won a game this weekend to get off of that on Christmas. What do you think of this Eagles team? Do they have enough to push to get back to an NFC championship game or the Super Bowl the way that they're playing here towards the end of the season?
I just don't see it. I mean, I think they're one and done in the postseason, whether they get the wild card, whether they win the division. I think they're going to be matched up. Let's say they win the division and they're the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed, wherever they end up in that 2 or 3. They're going to get the Rams or the Vikings or one of those teams that is going to be fully capable of going in there and winning. So I don't like their chances to even advance at all in the playoffs, much less get to the championship game. I just don't see that happening unless they can somehow flip a switch. And you're right. They're talking like a losing team, like a team that's struggling. Just disgruntled players, and you saw AJ Brown mouthing off last week, and defensive players, and is Jalen Hurts 100%? What's wrong with Jalen Hurts? He's just not played very well in this stretch of game. Really, probably since 10-1, and even then they struggled to win a lot of those 10 wins that they had early. They struggled to win those. So, maybe they get some momentum. That just wasn't very impressive last night. Yeah, they got by the Giants, but it was the Giants. And now they got the Cardinals this week. Yeah, but it's the Cardinals and the Giants. But maybe if you end on a 3-game winning streak, regardless of how you win those 3 games, maybe they get that confidence and momentum back and start to think that, hey, we are a good team. Let's get it rolling again. But, man, they just to me, they just have so many problems right now. Struggling. They can't find a third receiver. The defense is just giving up too many big plays, not getting to the quarterback, just all those things that are just making them struggle to win games. And when they win the games, obviously it comes down to the wire. So against teams that it shouldn't, frankly, come down to the wire again. I mean, look back at that Jets game. How in the world did they lose the Jets? So we're going back even beyond that 10-1 start, which included that Jets loss. So I don't see this as a Super Bowl team in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, as much as we watch football for what we do for a living, you just kind of get a sense sometimes. And with the Eagles, it just seems as though every single week, even if they win, to your point, it seems like they're further and further away from what they were and kind of that confidence they had. So interesting to watch them. Let's now switch to a team you know really well, of course, the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys go down to Miami, lose one there to the Dolphins, so they have not been able to quiet the critics around their inability to win on the road. When you look at this Dallas team, so much talent, such a great defense in my view. I picked the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl this year. Is this going to be an impediment for them? Do you think that they're going to be able to get it together in the playoffs? I mean, and they got a tough game against Detroit, right, this coming week. When you look at the Cowboys, how much is that in their head and how much of it is just the ball not bouncing the right way for them on the road?
I think they have a better shot if the Eagles lose one of these the next 2 games, which the way they're playing, as we just talked about, is possible. If the Eagles lose one of these next 2, then the Cowboys have a shot to win that division. It's going to be a tough game for them, but it is at home against the Lions this week. The Lions have clinched the division. So in reality, I don't know how much the Lions have to play for other than the pride factor of wanting to show that they can beat a really good team on the road. But I expect the Cowboys to win this one, and then I expect them to walk all over Washington. And whether that delivers the NFC East title or not, I don't know. It may not be enough to win those 2 games and to get that. I like their chances much, much better, though, if they're at home than if they have to go on the road. You look at the way Tampa's playing right now. They went to Tampa last year and won and played great against Tom Brady. I don't know. To me, Tampa's playing better right now than they were this time a year ago. You look at Baker Mayfield's numbers. They're better than Tom Brady's were at this point last year. So I think they've got a better team than what the Cowboys played last year. So to me, that's going to be a harder game for them. And they're just not the same team on grass. Of their losses, only one has been on turf away. That was the Buffalo game, was on turf away. The other losses have been on grass away. And I just think with their speed factor, I think it slows them down some, especially that defense. Michael Parsons getting off the ball. I think is much better on turf than he is on grass. I think that's part of it. And I think just Dak being able to change the plays at the line of scrimmage, it's harder to do when you're on the road with the noise factor. I think that's part of it. There's a lot of things. It's hard to simplify something, but, in the simplified version of it, they haven't been good on the road, period, end of story. And whatever those reasons are, they've got to figure out and try to fix all of those, because it does look like they're going to have to go on the road for their first game. And they win that, they're probably going to have to go to San Francisco. Now, maybe, we just talked about the Eagles win the division. Maybe they get upset in that first round and they don't have to go to San Francisco in the divisional round. But I don't see them winning at San Francisco. I know that has to give them hope with what the Ravens did last night, but I don't see the Cowboys having lost 42-10 to the 49ers earlier this year. I just don't see them going back in there and beating the 49ers. Be closer, I think, but I don't think you beat them.
Yeah, 49ers are going to be tough. And before I let you go, Charean, one of the teams that has really just shocked me, and I think you got to give credit to the coach on this one, and a team, if I'm on the NFC side, I do not want to play in the first round of the playoffs if they get there, which is the Los Angeles Rams. Can you believe the job that they've done there? Talk a little bit about this team. Everybody thought they're in rebuild mode, And now, again, like I said, if I'm an NFC team, I don't want to play the Rams in the first round.
You look at all the draft picks that they had, Puka Nacua, third rounder, I think he was. They have 2 fifth-rounders on their defensive line who lead the league rookies in sacks, 6.5 and it's 6, I think it is. Those 2 rookies on the defensive line are playing great. They just had a great draft, and they restocked, I think, probably a lot faster than they thought they were going to restock. Because let's face it, when you're drafting in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds, it's a crapshoot. You don't really know what you're getting. You might think this guy fits our system really well, but how long is it going to take for him to step? Those guys have stepped right in and really made a difference on that team. For a team that traded Jalen Ramsey and moved on from Odell Beckham, and you think of all the players that they've lost over the last couple of years since their Super Bowl win, it's a lot. They've had a huge amount of turnover, and what it tells me is when you have a really good quarterback, a top 10 quarterback, that you have a chance. Regardless of what the rest of the team looks like, if you have a top 10 quarterback, you have a chance. They have a top 10 quarterback. Matthew Stafford's playing like a top 10 quarterback. They've got enough out of those rookies on the offensive side and the defensive side and their free agent signings that they're playing great. I knew exactly where you're going when you're talking about a team that can go in and upset a team you don't want to play. I think you're dead on. They're not a team that I would want to play in the first round of the playoffs. Maybe I would want to play them even less than I'd want to play the Cowboys in the first round, just because I think they're playing at a higher level right now than the Cowboys are. We'll see what happens over the next 2 weeks. But, yeah, I love this Rams team, and you're right. Credit to Sean McVay for the coaching job that he's done, getting that team ready to play. The offensive play calling has been terrific. And it also tells you, I think he threw to 4 completed passes to 4, not only completed passes, I think he targeted 4 players. It just tells you, forget spreading the ball around. If you have 4 players who are that good, throw it to those 4 players. You don't need to throw it to other players. If you've got great weapons who get yards after the catch, concentrate on those guys. And that's what Matthew Stafford's done, and it's worked really well for that Rams offense.
It sure has. They can put points up. That game against the Ravens a few weeks ago was a remarkable one. Well, Charean Williams, legendary sports writer, of course, with NBC Sports covering the NFL. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll catch up with you hopefully down the road and during the playoffs.
Thank you for having me. Happy holidays.